2024 was less than ideal, and the Astros didn't achieve the goals that they had set forth outside of the division. But we're going to talk about some stats that may be a little less glaring than what we originally thought, and maybe some things they did a little better, but some things they did a lot worse. Let's talk about it right now.
Jainel Diaz, this is Locked On Astros.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros. We hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on X at Eric Dockstros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can we find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on X, Instagram, and TikTok, at Stros411 on X and on Facebook, and at Back to the Bullpen on X, on Instagram, on YouTube. And if you're listening right now live, you can catch us after Game 4 tonight. Mike and I are going to do a live post-game reaction, so check us out there at Back to the Bullpen.
Hey, guys, thank you for making us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Go and check us out. Go and subscribe to us. And go and help us get to 15,000 subscribers. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So 2024 was a season that a lot of us want to kind of forget. You got off to the rocky start, then you got to you kind of had the reinvigoration of the season, especially after Jose Abreu got sent to the minor leagues, then eventually got released. So there's a kind of a whole bunch of different parts of the season. So what Brett and I are going to do in today's episode is we're going to look at some stats, and we're going to look at how they compare to 2023, 2022. And I could look at the rest of the league, but I wanted to compare who the Astros are and what we think basically caused the Astros to be where they were, where they had to play in a wild card game series and eventually lose. So, Brett, the whole idea of this is I'm going to give you some stats, and we're going to kind of agree on what the top three were. So I know before the show, you and I talked about, well, it's got to be runners in scoring position. This is something that even Panda brings up, that runners in scoring position has got to be something. But, Brett, would you be surprised that it wasn't that far off from where they've been? And for the past 2 years, they've actually been the second best team with runners in scoring position, batting .270. And this year, they dropped a little bit to 6th in the league with a .267 batting average of runners scoring position. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a little surprising because I know it seemed like they were getting guys on base and they weren't scoring runs. But I think this is tied to the losing aspect of it, is also tied to another stat that we'll mention, and has to do with the pitching and not the offense. Both can be true. You can't have one without the other. But at the end of the day, it just seemed like, Eric, they couldn't really, close the door. When you look at what they did in the ninth inning, they gave up like 70 something runs to scoring like 39. And so, and that's why I talk about the pitching aspect. We'll get to that. But with this being said, I know runners in scoring position was a focus for a lot of people. I guess, it's a mirage, because you would think like 0.3 of a point of a, what do you say, 270 to 267? That's not a really drop. That's pretty much doing the same thing.
Right.
But I think pitchers giving up a lot of runs too really, really hurt the Astros.
I think that just remember, keep in mind that we're not comparing them to the rest of the league. We're comparing them to who the Astros are, guys. So as you're listening to this podcast, keep that in mind. So in 2022, the Astros were one of the best teams in terms of not grounding into a lot of double plays. They had 118. In 2023, they went up to 123. And then in 2024, it went all the way up to 133. So it did seem like when we get runners on base, there's a lot of rally killers in terms of double plays. So maybe later on we can talk. Was that a key stat to 2024 season? Did that cut those extra double plays? Did that cause the Astros to lose the extra games, to cause them to fall a little bit short? Or the other reasons? I know to start the season, Brett, strikeouts was a big issue. But would you believe they actually settled down? In 2022, they had 1179, which was the second fewest in baseball. And then 2023, 1249. They settled all the way down after being number one in baseball to start the season this year. They went all the way down to 1176, which was the second best in baseball. So it wasn't strikeout issue. I know it seemed like they struck out with key situations, but I would say if you're looking at strikeouts or double plays, I think double plays in this situation would be more of a key factor, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime you ground into a double play, that kills anything. Whether you have one out or no outs, that absolutely is a killer. So, yeah, grounding into double plays seemed to be something that it seemed like something they were fond of doing throughout the season, and it was frustrating. And we didn't have the clear cut. Oh, they're clearly better on the road than they are at home, because they were one of the best home teams this year in Major League Baseball. And so you have that going for you. You have a lineup that boasts Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena, Mauricio Dubon, on and on and on. And these guys, when they're at the top of their game, they can perform with anybody. And you had injuries throughout the year. You had setbacks. You had guys pressing. And you and I saw this. Everybody saw this in the fan base. Like, we were like, are they even going to make the playoffs? And that's what happens. And then it gets inside your head. Then you start pressing. Then you start taking balls instead of, like, you take balls that are in the zone and then you swing at balls that are out of the zone. So, you're rolling over. Your bat path is off. So it just seemed like things clicked the wrong way in the first part of the season.
Well, somebody did bring up, Tiki52 does bring up the fact, well, what about two outs with runners in scoring position? So in 159 games, this situation did come up. You have the Astros batting 246 with a 735 OPS. So the batting average does drop a little bit in this situation. So I think that with two outs, it's a whole different situation from with in terms of the whole runners in scoring position umbrella. So I guess if you're looking at that criteria, if you're looking at late and close, it's about 246 as well, with runners in scoring position as well. No, that's late and close period. So we're going to talk about that in a second, but I guess the pressure's on a little bit more when you got two outs, because you're trying to be the hero. You're trying to score the run, especially start season when the Astros started. What was it? It was 10-19, and everybody's trying to be a hero. Everybody's trying to fix things. So I think that you saw a lot of that to start the season. So, Brett, another thing that let's see if there's anything else key. Oh, home runs. Chicks did dig the long ball.
Yeah.
Would you believe that home runs were down a lot this year? So in 2022, the Astros hit 214. 2023, 222. This year, it dropped all the way down to 190. Is that a key contributor to the Astros season?
Well, it's a key contributor to why they didn't perform better. I mean, you less home runs, thus emphasizes the fact that you need Yordan to have help. Is Kyle Tucker going to be a playoff home run hitter? If he's not, like, go out and get a big bat, go out and get somebody who hits home runs. We need more power in this lineup for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact I didn't look this up. I meant to look this up. It's probably a key stat that I didn't get to, but how many games did Alvarez miss? A combination of Alvarez. Then I don't think Altuve missed a lot this year, but then you had Tucker miss a lot. So how many games did those guys miss in total? That probably affected the Astros season a lot. So guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. we'll go and continue this conversation. We got a couple more hitting stats, then we'll go ahead and look at the pitching stats. Then at the end, we'll kind of take a look at what was the big key stats for the 2024 season. So thank you for making us first listen, and we'll be right back.
It's all about the PrizePicks, baby. That's right. PrizePicks is the most amazing fantasy sports app out there. And I'm telling you, I use it. Eric uses it. It is a blast. I loved what I got rewarded with this last week. But listen, if you haven't done this, you can get $50 instantly when you play $5 just simply using the code LOCKEDONMLB. Look, you can go more or less on Justin Jefferson getting 83.5 yards. Now that the Texans are in a crazy situation with the loss of Stephon Diggs, will we see the emergence of the other receivers around CJ Stroud? Whatever you're picking, whoever you're picking, whether your lineup is 2 or 4 players, you can win a lot of money with PrizePicks. I promise you, it is the place you want to go. You don't want to go anywhere else, and it's quick and easy payouts. They can send it to you within as few as 15 minutes. That's right. You can play alongside of Sean O'Malley and so many more. So check out PrizePicks today. It is the #1 app for you to play fantasy sports. PrizePicks, run your game.
Hey guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. Whether it's on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to us. Make us first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Go ahead and check us out. So we are looking at the hitter stats for 2024, and we've kind of talked about a few things. Before you get into what you have, Brett, I did look at the analytics, and I looked at exit velocity. There was a slight drop from 92.6 for the past 2 seasons to 92.2. That's not that big a difference. Hard hit percentage was up a little bit from last year, down a little bit from 2022, so not much of a difference. Launch angle was up a little bit from 2022 at 34.1, down a little bit from last year. So there's not really that big a difference in terms of that. But one thing I did find is that the Astros, in terms of innings 7 through 9, they did struggle with a 246 batting average, 312, 386, and 698 OPS. So overall, when it was when they Astros needed to score runs to kind of win some of these games, they struggled. And this kind of brings up a stat that I talked to you before the podcast, Brett. In 1-run games, the Astros were 18-27. That's a 400 winning percentage. That probably caused them to lose a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, we could just unpeel this onion all night long. It's almost like taking a Band-Aid off a scab over and over and over, right? Yeah. But on the injured list, you had Dubin miss 15 games, Verlander 20 games, Valdez 18, Kessinger 10, Javier 18, and then obviously later on we know what happened there. You had Verlander later in the year. I mean, Verlander 54 games. Wow, 54 games. Caratini 25 games. I mean, these guys. Tucker 79 games. I mean, that's
Alvarez.
That's crazy. Alvarez. Why is he not on this injured list? Yordan Alvarez is not on here.
He did miss some games, right? Because he had a knee injury.
So. He did, but it doesn't. No, he was never put on the injured list. Remember that?
Oh, that's right. That's right. He missed games, but he didn't.
But he wasn't on the IL. Those are, that's. I mean, that was straight from the Astros MLB press box.
That's true.
I was sitting there looking, thinking maybe I was overlooking it. And then of course you had this is crazy. Garcia, Graveman, McCullers, Murphy, Ortega, Souza, Urquidy, Javier, all like 161 games.
Right.
I mean, look, injuries, Eric, if I look, something interesting to do. It's not very fun. I want our listeners, our viewers, to go look for injuries for every team. Go look up Major League Baseball injuries 2024. It will blow your mind how many players get injured throughout the regular season. It's
Right.
insane. So yeah, it's just something that, Eric, I mean, injury is something you have to deal with. But I think getting a big bat is going to be key. They need to bring some power back. You know, we've made moves in the past for power bats going way back to the Drayton McLean days with guys like Carlos Lee and stuff like that. Will the Astros go out and get their power bat guy? And since we're going to be named after an air conditioning company, we could put ice cubes. You said AC units. If you put ice cubes in there, we could bring the polar bear, Pete Alonso, here. That would be cool. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So some other stats before we move on to the pitching. At bats per home run, that was actually up, which is not a good thing. So in 2022, it's 25.28. In 2023, 25.08. It jumped all the way to 29.10. That's because home runs dropped this past year. Total bases was not that far off. It was more than it was in 2022, down from 2023. We know we had a little bit better offense that year. The BABIP, the batting average of balls in play, was actually up this year. So you would think that wouldn't be the case, but it's at 299 this year, up from 294 and 278. So that's some of the stuff I looked at in terms of the hitting. So I think that's about it. So let's go and move on to the pitching side of things. Before we move on to the pitching side thing, I do want to point out that the reason why the Astros were where they were was because they got off to the 10-19 start. If they would have gotten maybe off to a better start, maybe played better, a little bit better against the Yankees to start the season, and not laid a goose egg or whatever against them, maybe they would have got off to a better start. But once May happened, they did turn things around. So one key stat could be the 10-19 start, but they were able to turn it around and have a respectful season, 88 and 73 overall.
Yeah, because the baseball team in all the world that won the most games this year was the Sugarland Space Cowboys at 93, which is pretty interesting. I guess 93 games was the most wins in the Astros organization. But if you look at, like you said, 10-19 March and April, 15-14 in May, June, amazing turnaround, 17-8, 14-11, 18-10, 14-11. So they started turning things around. But the pitching, get this, the back end of the bullpen, 70 runs in the ninth compared to 36 runs. And I know I mentioned that earlier, but I want to make sure I got that right. But in August, what went right in August for the pitching was they were second with the lowest batting average against at 185. So that's when they were hot. That's when they were rocking and rolling. And it was just one of those things where you're like, wow, okay, like this team has the ability. And that's why I kept saying this team had hope to move on, to move forward, to be that team that could be dangerous. And like, what did I say? Nobody wants to play the Astros. Well, apparently the Tigers took care of business pretty easily, and that really sucked. But, I guess we move on, we move forward. We can't do anything about it. You can't cry over spilt milk. But the Astros giving up runs and scoring runs like in the first inning was way different. And you can't give up runs early and you can't give up runs late, especially if you're not converting runs in any of those innings. So the Astros did a lot to hurt themselves, but needless to say, they turned it around. It just wasn't enough. They didn't have enough steam in the engine when they got to the playoffs.
All right, so I know a lot of focus has been on the Astros bullpen, and respectfully so. They went out and got Josh Hader. So I actually did my math wrong. I had to go back and fix it. So in 2022, we had that dynamic bullpen, and you remember the bullpen was so good that you had Jim Crane. I forgot his name for a second, but Jim Crane went out and signed Montero. but that year was just awesome. 53 out of 69 save opportunities that year for 76.8. Then in 2023, you had 42 out of 61 for 68.8% save percentage. Last year, 43 out of 69. That's a 62% save percentage. So that was a lot to do with Josh Hader, a lot to do with the fact that you had Ryan Presley struggles, and you also had at time Brian Abreu might have been overused, and you just had Rafael Montero thrown in some saves, not save situations, but blown save situations. So it's just the bullpen wasn't that great. But if you look at the ERA, it was actually about the same as it was last year. So in 2023, it was 3.56. This year, it was 3.66. And in 2022, it was 2.80. So
I think was ERA up though across the league? Isn't ERA up more? Or I think that's harder to dude, I would really like to see the numbers and you can look at it on Baseball Savant, like barreled, percentages, how solid people were hitting the ball, hard contact, things like that. That would really tell a tale going into this next season for the Houston Astros. But get this, Eric, 32 losses after leading.
Yeah.
That's not good. 32. Yeah,
it sucks. It's about not scoring the runs late in games. So, Brett, we're going to have to continue this conversation in a second. Guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day.
This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go to Game Time today. Download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. It may not be baseball season, but it doesn't matter because any event in your area, especially Houston, you can get great tickets, great seats, great views, and all for one low price. Look, there is no surprise. There's no gotcha at the end of the transaction. So go to Game Time today. I've downloaded the app. Flash deals, zone deals, all-in-one pricing, seat views, the lowest price guaranteed. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, and they will credit you 110% the difference if you find tickets in the same row and same section for a cheaper price. You got to download Game Time today. I've used it. You've got to use it. If you haven't, why not do it now? That's right. This is your chance to get in on all the great action. Go to Game Time today. Lowest ticket price guaranteed. It's Game Time.
I want to give one positive note. My name is Eric Huysman. He's Brett Chancey. We are the Locked On Astros podcast, and we are always Stros, always positive. I stole your tagline there. But anyway, the Astros did improve their record at home this year. So remember the last year where it was terrible they were terrible at home. This year they were 46-35 at home. They're a much better team at home, but they kind of regressed a little bit on the road. So I don't know if there's any reasoning behind that. But I'll go and let you finish your thought that you had before the break.
Which was, what was I talking about? I completely just went catatonic on you.
Oh, it's fine. We're talking about bullpen ERAs and ERAs going down all around. But while we're talking about ERAs, let's go.
No, it's not. I think ERAs have gone up. I think, you've got people, Ohtani hitting 50 home runs, Aaron Judge hitting 60 something home runs. I mean, I think ERAs are up across the board. You have more starters going fewer innings. You have the relief pitchers having to do the 3-batter minimum. And I think there are a lot of things like that. And so, we can split hairs or make heads and tails, but I know the Astros, if you ask them, they would just basically say what Alex Bregman said to me a couple years ago when I had the opportunity to go to Canes, and he said, it's about execution. It comes down to executing, and in the bottom line, they're the ones responsible. They're the ones who have the keys to the car, and they've got to push the gas pedal. They've got to make the right turns. And look, sometimes baseball gets the best of you. That 2022 season, Eric, and I'll say this, and I'll end my comment here on it, but that season was about as close to one of the most perfect baseball seasons ever that I've ever seen. And we may not see another season that replicates that greatness.
Right. So I'm going to throw something out. I'm not sure if I did this earlier, but April. April was terrible. We already talked about the 10-19 record, but the ERA in April was terrible. 5.10 ERA. That was compared to in 2023, 3.24, and in 2022, 3.59. So the ERA just kind of stood out as something that was just abnormal, something that's not very Astros like. And that led to the bad start. The Astros weren't scoring runs like they should, or they weren't able to catch up. And so I think it was a matter of the fact that the Astros got off to such a bad start. So I think one of my key stats would be the ERA in April. And also, we also talked about the one-run record, 18-27 in one-run games. That's a big factor. You're not able to get the job done. It's either a bullpen or the offense is not scoring runs. It's got to be something. So I'll go ahead and let you kind of talk about what stood out to you so far, if there's anything else that we've missed, and then you can tell me your three.
Well, obviously I was going to go with runners in scoring position, but we kind of blew that theory out of the water. So
it was down, Brett. So you can still go with it.
Well, it was
that 3 points is a big deal.
Yeah, but 67 to 70. That's, I don't know. It is what it is at this point. I really don't know. I just know that the opponent here it is. Runs by inning, opponents 99 runs in the first inning. That is ridiculous. Right. In the first, hold on, I'm going to do a math because, I'm not a math guy. So I'm going to do the first inning, which was 99 runs, the second inning, which was 69 runs, noise. And then the third inning, 242 runs scored by the opponent. Okay. Wow. The Astros in the first 3 innings scored 221 runs. Oh, there was a lot of scoring going on. But when you get to the back end in the 9th inning, the opponent scored 70 runs. The Astros scored 36. That 9th inning killed us.
Right.
The 6th inning, the Astros outscored. Dude, the 4th and the 6th inning was our bread and butter. 111, 107 runs. So 200, 1/5 of our runs came in like 2 innings. But when I look at these totals, I'm like, man, if we'd have just had more home runs or guys on base. When you look at, I think one of the key things is where guys bat in the lineup, Eric. And I'll go over that here in a second once you kick it over to me fully.
Yeah, remember the Alvarez experiment where they're trying to bat him second, and they did it again in playoffs. And for some teams, it works. You see Shohei Ohtani doing it, and Mookie Betts doing it with the Dodgers. And by the way, Freddie Freeman hit another home run. So now he surpasses George Springer, and even Yankees fans are happy about that because they erase George Springer from the history of, not necessarily from the history, but.
Well, they weren't happy about it at first. They weren't happy about it until, I don't think they're happy about it at all. I just think they're haters, but last I checked, they were down 5-2. Anthony Volpe hit a grand slam, first pitch that he saw. First career postseason home run, I believe, for Volpe. So yeah, they're up there trying to stave off elimination in a sweep. But yeah, Freddie Freeman, dude, that pitch that he hit, all his other pitches have been inside and he's been bringing his hands in. This one was out over the plate and it got just enough of the plate and he freaking barreled the ball. It was an absolute rocket to right field. And it was a no doubter. So yeah, Freddie Freeman, this is a guy that hadn't hit a home run in 41 days prior to game 1 of the World Series. In 41 games. So the Dodgers are probably going to win the World Series, and Freddie Freeman is the clear unanimous World Series MVP for sure.
It's hard to really say what the key stats were. Their power is down a little bit. They ground in more double plays. You saw them make more contact.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Grounding into double plays is massive.
Right. Runners in scoring position with 2 outs was down a little bit. So you can point to that a little bit. Home runs were down. The starters ERA was down from last year. Last year was 4.17. This year is 3.81. I would say I still stick with the April ERA that led to the bad start. And I would say what the Astros did late in games. They didn't score a lot of runs, especially extra innings. They had a bad 6-10 record in extra innings. They didn't really hit a lot in extra innings. So late, they didn't do much with the bats. And so also, I think they grounded into a lot of double plays. They just squandered a lot of possible runs this year. And that's not always going to show up in a runners in scoring position.
Yeah, definitely. So the Astros saw 147 different lineups in the season.
Wow.
That rivals everybody's darling AJ Hinch. Whenever you had Yordan Alvarez batting third, the Astros were 56-37. When he was batting second, they were 24-30. When you had Bregman second, they were 42-24. Let me see. Pena, when he was batting fifth, 39-18. So you have that. Yainer Diaz, when he was batting fourth, you had a 39-20 record. And see, Kyle Tucker, 17-13 batting second, 11-18 batting third, 9-6 batting fourth. So we know he had a lot fewer games than everybody, but you only had 4 leadoff hitters. Pena, you were 1-0. There you go, Pena. Good job. Tucker 1-1. Bregman 3-4, and then of course Altuve 83-68. So I really think if Bregman's able to come back, you have to keep Bregman at second spot. I don't want to see Alvarez in the second spot. It didn't work out. I mean, the wins and losses prove it. So, look at this. I mean, I think that right there is where these guys hit change the way. I think Alvarez, when you're able to see more pitches, you're able to get up there and watch the pitcher a little bit more right there on the spot. I think that helps him. You didn't have, you had quite a few multi-hit games. I believe Yainer Diaz led most catchers, if not most position players, for quite a bit of the year with multi-hit games. And then Altuve and Alvarez went. Actually, did they go past him? No, they didn't. Diaz, he had 50. He had 50 multi-hit games, and that was more than. Yeah, I think that was more than the other two. 48. Yeah. So he had the most multi-hit games. No, 53 and 53 for Alvarez and Altuve. So you need your hitters to produce runs and get home runs. And so I don't know, like I can't nail down the stats. I can't nail down what is the most important.
Right.
But OPS and OPS plus definitely needs to be something they look at. Getting on base, maybe if we look at pitches per at bat, were they taking more or less pitches, things like that.
So I know it didn't really factor in, but going 5-8 against the Mariners, that was not very good. Also getting swept by the Reds and the Cubs. The Cubs, I can see a little bit more. They may have been a little bit better team, but the Red series, I remember that was pathetic. They did get swept by the Braves, but the Braves, even though they weren't really a factor into the playoffs, but it's still being swept by some of these teams. Also, that 1-6 record versus the Yankees, and not just that 1-6 record, but being outscored 43-22 in that series. So that was just kind of embarrassing. And maybe it was a foreshadowing to what's going to happen to the Yankees series season. But at the same time, they're they're maybe they won't get swept by the Dodgers, but
well, the Dodgers have cut the lead. It's 5-4 right now as we talk. What would be interesting if the Yankees start the season by sweeping the Astros, but end by getting swept by the Dodgers? That'd be kind of poetic justice. I don't know. Just no offense. I just don't want to see the Yankees win a game in the World Series. I want them to go. I want them to go this series and be these bums swept out of here. Oh, did you see what happened tonight with Mookie Betts?
No.
So there was a fly ball hit to right field. And I think it was Volpe who hit it. I can't remember who hit it. And it was trailing out of bounds. You know how they have the wall kind of like we do, but it's a lot higher in New York. They got the blue wall in right field. Mookie's tracking it down, goes up, glove goes over the fence, right? And I actually put it on X tonight. Dude grabbed Mookie Betts' glove. He's got his glove squeezed with the ball in the palm. And you can see his face. He's fighting Mookie. Opens his glove and shoves the ball out of his glove, trying to make it look like he didn't have the end. Like Mookie Betts about he lost it. And I was like, get that bum out of here. I was like, that's probably the guy who started the FL Tuve chants back, years back. But it was such a corny move. It was so childish. The dude literally pried the glove open and pulled the ball. I've never seen that. Wildest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I think for that alone, the Yankees deserve to get swept just for that guy doing that.
All righty, guys. But we want to know what you think. We kind of listed some stats. It's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what happened. There were so many things that went wrong with the 2024 Astros, but we just kind of listed a few. We want to know your opinion. So go ahead after this show. Go ahead and put in comments what you think the 3 key stats were to 2024 season. What do they need to improve upon? We want to hear your thoughts. We'll go ahead and include them in some future shows. But thank you for making us your first listen. And hey, don't forget, tomorrow, whether the Yankees get swept or not, don't forget about Roy Oswalt. He'll be joining the show. We'll be doing a little pregame analysis or talking about the World Series and the Yankees getting swept. So either way, we'll be talking to Roy Oswalt. And so, guys, thank you for making us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go and check us out, and we will see you tomorrow. And what do we say, Brett?
Go Stros.
See you tomorrow.
Those bums, Yankee bums.